Hi everyone, it's Nate Piekos of Blambot and welcome to Lettering Live. Today I have 2 pages from Satan's Swarm for you, a 60-page original graphic novel by Steve Niles, Piotr Kowalski, and Lovern Kindzierski, and myself. So I have pages 40 and 44, and 40 is a splash page. It features the characters in the story walking through the woods, and they're commenting on how loud the buzzing and chirping of these murderous bugs is. Now, the script originally called for just 4 of these little chirping noises, but since the characters seem to be commenting on how loud it is, and the art seemed to really call for a wall of sound here, I decided to do lots of these chirping noises and sort of create a wave on the page. And I even create a clipping mask at the end to cut some of these sound effects behind some of the trees, which I think sells the effect more than anything. But you'll see me basically Tetris together all these different size versions of the chirping sound effect throughout this page. So page 44 is your standard dialogue page, but it's got a pretty interesting scream at the end of it. And I included it just sort of as a palette cleanser after that big puzzle of a sound effect on page 40. Fonts used in Satan's Swarm are Nerves of Steel for dialogue, Blambastic for shouting, and the wall of sound effects of the chirping bugs is a font called Dearly Departed, which I originally designed for sort of undead horror dialogue, but it seemed to work in this case. And that's all I've got for you, so enjoy the show. So let's get to work here. I've sped this clip up to about 350% just because this page took me a lot longer than a page normally would because of this giant sound effect at the top of the page. So here we're going to start out with just the standard dialogue. There's just a couple of balloons on this page. So I'll get these done first because I usually save sound effects as my last task for every page just because I find it the most fun. And it's important to make sure you have enough room for your dialogue first before you start doing any sound effects. Not necessarily on this page, but just in general. So these are some chicka chicka bug noises that I came up with that have been used throughout the book. And there's so many little variations that I just started saving them so I wouldn't have to recreate, a dozen different variations on this word. So here comes the Tetris. This is the long slog of assembling these things so they look pleasing together. They fall in a good place as far as the layout of the page, the artwork. And you're just gonna have to sit back, grab yourself a beverage, and watch me struggle with this for a little bit. So I'm just tweaking and moving and dragging things around and copying, and I'm making sure they're not all sort of perfectly parallel or perfectly 90 degrees. They're not all the same size. There's this big tree branch right here in the middle, and my plan is to use a clipping mask to make it look like this wall of sound effects is in the trees, behind that big branch, maybe behind some smaller branches in the back there. So like I said, I'm speeding this up because it's going to take a bit. I don't know how exciting this is going to be for you to watch, but it's a little bit of a zen. It's kind of like building an old New England style stone wall where you've got all these rocks that are different sizes and different shapes, and you're just trying to make them all fit together. So bear with me as we watch this process in a sped up fashion. If you think this is a little dull, you should have been here in real time when I was actually lettering it. But you can see I'm trying to make this wave. I'm trying to create a shape to it, and I will continue to copy and paste, move things around. I'm trying not to have the same size chicka no two of the same size near each other. Some are a little bigger, some are a little smaller. These bugs are really buzzing or chirping or whatever they do here. So I'm trying to make it look like a wave, sort of have a flow to it. And once I get these all in the position I want, I'm going to decide on color and if I want to do an outline on them. And then once we're happy with that, we're going to get into the clipping mask. So in the meantime, enjoy the tedium of designing a big giant wall of bug noises. So how's your day going? So far, I'm recording this actually, it's going to be months after I lettered it. I lettered this project quite a while ago, and it was scheduled to come out around Halloween, or in October anyway, of this year, 2024. So I sat on this video for quite a while, and when I opened it up thinking I had already edited all this together for your enjoyment, it turns out I never recorded my vocal track. So here I am, months and months later, recording a vocal track for a thing I sort of remember doing. So some of this will be a surprise for me as well as you. You letter so much when you're a professional letterer that month to month you sometimes forget what you did and what's coming out when, and that can be good and bad because you always have to, in case you have to have a follow-up. Like if there was a sequel to this, I always save PDFs of the work I did because every book has a different style guide. So saving a PDF of what you did, maybe on a project that happened 2 years ago or 5 years ago, you never know when you're going to have to come back to it for a sequel, and you got to keep all those style guides straight. So that's why I save PDFs of all this stuff on my hard drive so I can look at them as reference just in case. So we're getting a lot of these done here. We're almost done aligning all these different noises. And this, if you didn't have the self-control to stop arranging all these, you could do this for hours and hours and hours. My math is terrible, and like I said, I sped this up about 350% of what it was in real time. So you can do the math and figure out how long this actually took me. Because I was terrible at math in school. Actually, it's the only thing I ever went to summer school for. It's a good thing it doesn't really factor into my job all that much anymore. So, moving things around. Almost done. Almost there. I promise. This is where you start getting too picky. You're like, oh, there's, and what I'm doing here is I'm looking at negative space. When you see me zoom out like this, I'm looking at how it's almost like if you were to step back and sort of squint your eyes and sort of see what this mass of noise looks like as a wave. You can see sort of the shapes in it. And I also want some smaller ones coming off, sort of almost flaking off at the top and bottom of this, just because I think it'll help sell the the echoiness of it, maybe. I don't know. I'm just kind of riffing and doing what I think looks good. But see those colors there at the top that I just sampled are the colors that I've been consistently using throughout this book for this type of sound effect. And here I just applied a wave effect. Did I just undo the wave effect? Maybe I did. I don't know why I'm being so picky with this one little chicka here at the bottom. So we're back to, you'll notice I have the artwork set at like 30% of its opacity, or its color density. And that's just so I can see my lettering better while I'm working. I can switch that on and off. And you'll see me do that probably a couple times just to check the colors, make sure everything sort of complements. Fine-tuning all these little things, and I'm starting to spread them out a little bit more. This is where you consider it earning your page rate or maybe burning your page rate, because on average it takes me about 20 minutes or so to letter a page when I'm really in the zone. And I think this took a lot longer than that. So you always got to keep in mind as a professional letterer how long it takes you to do something, because you're only getting paid one rate for a page, regardless if it takes you 15 minutes or 2 hours. So, there's a value there you have to sort of keep in mind. So there's that, I'm applying that effect of that wave again. I think at this time, am I happy finally? That's not bad. Sampling those colors, we're going to add an outline and then sample the outline color. I know this is a little faster than I normally do these videos, but what am I doing here? Oh, see, these little objects, I make little markers for myself because I'm going to hide the sound effect. And you don't want to make, I'm about to make the clipping mask here, and it's a tedious process, and you don't want to make more clipping mask than you actually need. So I add those little object things as markers. So as I'm drawing my clipping mask, see right there, boom, I hit it. I know I don't have to go any further than that. So we're just kind of clipping along here and making all these shapes. At least at this point, I'm done with the making all those chickas. See there, you make a clipping mask. This is at least the way I do it. I cover up the thing I'm going to sort of drop the sound effects behind, and this will become, the process will become more apparent in a minute here. But these are the things I want to chop the sound effects behind, and you see how that it's going to. So you do this. Because the sound effect runs right to the edges of the page, I've got to make my clipping mask to the edge of the page. So I just use that shape of the tree that I created an object of, like right there. And that gets chopped out of that big rectangle, and then that rectangle gets turned into a clipping mask. That's creating a little tangent right there, so I moved it. But you see how doing this sort of makes the lettering cooperate more with the artwork? It looks like it's supposed to be there. It's sort of, it's more married together. It's more working hand in hand rather than it's just slapped on top of the artwork. If you can find ways to really make that sound effect part of the art, you've done a good job. So here we are on that second page. This is page 44. And this is mostly just sort of a typical page. I didn't want you to have to watch all that sound effect on page 40 and not see anything else. So here I am just dragging my area type objects with my text around the page. I don't think I had any placements for this project. I was just doing the placements on the fly, which is fine. Dragging my area type objects around. I'm trying to make pleasing stacks of text that will fit into, oval shaped balloons, or roughly oval shaped balloons. I think I'm using my more organic shapes for this project. But you can see we've got some grossness happening here at the end, and a shout. And I'm just sort of going to vary those letters a little bit. So we're going to do our balloons first. And I'm grabbing, these balloons aren't perfect ovals. Some of them are shaped a little wider at the top, a little wider at the bottom. You can see how that one's wider at the top. And this is just sort of my, it's an influence I take from hand lettering, where back in the day, when they were, those letterers who didn't use oval templates to make their balloons, they would just freehand them. They weren't all perfectly round, perfectly oval. They conformed more to the shape of, the text. So that was an off-panel tail here. Here's, see me adjust a little bit to make this a little more organic and fit that text a little better. And I draw all my tails, all my basic tails on the fly. It's just quicker for me. Some letterers have a bunch of tails pre-made. And I do use pre-made tails when it comes to crazy, like monster-y tails, or sort of wiggly tails, things like that. But just for the standard ones, I just make them on the fly because I've been doing this for so long that making a tail takes no time at all for me. So I'm adjusting this big letters of this shout. She apparently has just realized that there's a little problem with that arm. Not looking too good there. So this is an approach where you just do a bunch of outlines around the text you've created to create sort of a balloon that conforms to the shape of the text. I didn't like that right there, so I'm going to do a little cheat. Still doesn't look great, but there we go. Bring the crossbar of that H down a little bit. Repeat the process. You can see those were the tails I was just talking about a minute ago. Oop, little defect there we gotta fix. Fix that. And you can see in my template I have lots of things like bursts and things that I've created over the years. And I use them for projects like this where I need. Saves me some time to not have to create everything from scratch every time. And what are we doing here? Oh, it was on the wrong layer. So now, so that outline needs to be on the balloon layer because that burst is on the balloon layer, and we want to impermanently unite them. I had a little negative space there I wanted to fill with the A. Doesn't quite work. So we're going to drop that down a little bit. You're always looking at negative and positive space. So now I'm trying to decide how to put the tail here. Kind of surprised I did that tail with an upward arc as opposed to a lower arc. Little extra emphasis on that burst, which I will then fill with black. There you go. But the tail, the emphasis is only on the burst. I dropped it behind the burst, and there's no other offset path around the sort of balloon that conforms to the letters. And I'm going to do a clipping mask on that too. So these balloons all have a calligraphic stroke that you just saw me apply. So now there's a little clipping mask, a very simple clipping mask. These are all much simpler. They're just rectangles to clip the balloons to the panel borders. Same exact idea as doing the sound effect on the last page though. You're just taking an object and turning it into a clipping mask. So you'll see me do one more here, right to the edge of the page. Select everything. Oops. Come on. I need to select the balloon and the text because they're both getting clipping masks. There you go. So when that prints, it'll print right off the edge of the page like it looks like it's supposed to. Like it's coming right out of the panel at you. And finally, I update my title block with the page number, and I save the page. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching.